I flatlined for 78 seconds, while my sister gave a speech about compassion. Let that sink in. Itessa Lorne was dying on a metal table under fluorescent lights, while Ivy accepted an award for her outstanding humanity at a glittering gala downtown. That irony would be hilarious if it didn't hurt so much both physically and otherwise. Until that night, I was the one who held it all together. The planner, the fixer, the quiet background sister who sent birthday reminders, booked family flights, and took late-night calls when Mom had another meltdown over Dad's gambling. I was the duct tape on a cracked vase. That morning, my assistant Mia eyed me from her desk as I clutched my abdomen, trying not to double over. "Tessa, this isn't just bad takeout. You need urgent care. I'll go after the Ridgemore pitch," I said, sweat already beating down my neck. 10 more minutes. Those 10 minutes almost killed me. By the time I stumbled into the clinic, everything around me had a watercolor blur. I heard the words ruptured ovarian cyst and internal bleeding, then saw a nurse hit a red button. I remember fumbling with my phone, the screen swimming. Called Mom voicemail. Dad, no answer. Ivy finally picked up. "Hey, I'm in an ambulance," I said, breathing through the pain. Something's wrong. Really wrong. A pause. Tessa, now. The gala is tonight, and the photographer just canceled. She sounded genuinely annoyed. "Ivy, I might need surgery." "Oh my God. Seriously, can't you just..." Her voice cut out as I dropped the phone and passed out. I woke up to the sound of soft beeping and a nurse adjusting my IV. She had freckles and kind eyes. Her name tag said Quinn. "Hey, welcome back," she whispered. "You scared the hell out of us." I tried to speak, but my throat felt like sandpaper. "My family," she hesitated. "We called your emergency contacts. Left messages when you were taken into surgery." No one responded. I turned my head slowly toward the side table. My phone was there, silent. No missed calls, no voicemails. One notification, though: Ivy Lorne tagged you in a photo. My hand trembled as I tapped it open. A perfect shot of Ivy at the Gala award in hand, standing next to Mom and Dad. Ivy beamed in a gold gown under twinkling chandeliers. The caption, "Grateful beyond words." Family means everything. Timestamp 9:14 p.m. I was still in surgery at 9:14 p.m. Dr. Miles came in next. Youngish, sharp jawline, clipboard. "You're lucky," he said. "The rupture caused significant bleeding, but we caught it in time." I blinked. How long was I? In surgery 4 hours, but there was a complication. I knew before he said it. My heart stopped. He nodded. 78 seconds. We documented everything. You were clinically dead. I laughed. A short, hollow sound. How precise. He didn't smile. "Do you have someone we can call?" I looked back at my phone. Still blank. No. After he left, I scrolled through years of photos. Birthdays, graduations, holidays. Me always holding the camera, never in the frame. Then Quinn returned. Ivy called. She said, carefully avoiding my eyes. She said she hopes you're okay. Also asked if you could wire her $4,000. Something about an after-party invoice. Did she ask if I was still alive? No, Quinn whispered. She didn't. The next morning, I woke up early. The pain meds made the world soft around the edges, but not soft enough to forget. I checked social media again. More photos. Ivy basking in spotlights. Dad's comment. Proud doesn't even begin to cover it. Mom's, a perfect night with our perfect girl. I stared at their faces, smiling, relaxed. Not a single sign of panic. Not even a hint of, "Where's Tessa?" My phone buzzed. A text from Ivy Tess. "You will not believe this. Jordan proposed right at the gala, OMG." I stared at the screen, then typed, "I died last night." She responded, "Don't be so dramatic. You're fine now, right?" Anyway, about the wedding. I turned to Quinn. "When can I leave?" "Doctor says one more night for observation." I nodded. "Okay. And Do you have the form to change emergency contacts? She blinked, then brought it back without a word. I crossed out every name. Later that day, Mia, my assistant, walked in with a latte and my laptop. "Thought you might need these," she said, placing them down. "Also, I forwarded the Ridgemore files. You don't have to touch them yet." I almost cried. "Thank you. Oh, and this," she handed me a folder. "Power of attorney update. Just in case." I looked at her stunned. "How did you know?" She shrugged. "Because your sister called me last night. Not to ask how you were, but to find out if the Gala photos were good enough for PR. Something broke inside me, and it wasn't sadness. It was release." That night, while Quinn adjusted my IV and Mia cleaned up my inbox, I wrote one more email. This one, dealt to my lawyer. Subject: emergency update. Legal proxy and account audit request. I'd like to remove the following individuals from all permissions. As I signed my name, I felt something shift. Not physically, not the scars or the soreness, but something deeper, lighter. For 78 seconds, I had been technically dead. Now, finally, I was starting to live. I spent the next 24 hours in that hospital bed scrolling through digital proof that I'd never really belonged in my own family. Post after post showed Ivy's glittering night, posing with award donors, laughing with press, hugging mom like they'd just survived something heroic together. There were no captions about fear or hope, just hashtags like #blessed, #best night, and my personal favorite, family first. I watched those clips while hooked to 2 IVs, stomach still raw from the surgery, wondering how much more obvious the universe needed to be. I died. They posted. That's not a metaphor. It's data. Mia stayed the whole time. She set up her laptop at the foot of my bed and quietly answered my emails so I wouldn't have to. Every few hours, she'd hand me a bottle of water or adjust my pillow. She never asked questions, just existed beside me with a calm that didn't require explanation. When the nurse cleared me for discharge, Mia was the one who caught my elbow when I nearly collapsed trying to stand. She ordered the Uber, packed up my things, even threw away the stuffed bear someone from admin had left on my tray table like a sympathy prize. Back at my apartment, everything felt too quiet. Not peaceful, just hollow. I collapsed into bed, then remembered my phone buzzing nonstop from the hospital. Dozens of texts blinked across the lock screen. "Ivy, you're home. Great. Can you help transfer $6K for the engagement planner deposit? They don't take split cards. Mom, please check your email. Your father needs that shareholder report for tomorrow's call. Dad, call me. Important." Not a single one asked how I felt. Not one even said welcome back. I deleted every message without reading past the first line. 2 hours later, I was filling out forms to separate all joint accounts. Health, legal, financial. Mia, reading over my shoulder, glanced up. "You want a lawyer for this? I know someone." I nodded. She handed me a contact card from her wallet, like she'd been waiting for this moment. Margaret Doyle. Family law. Discreet. Aggressive. By sunset, Margaret had called to confirm receipt. "I'll prepare the financial firewall documents. Anything else I should know?" I hesitated. My sister might have forged my medical proxy the night I went under. There was a signature. I never signed anything. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then she said, "I'll pull hospital records and start a digital audit. If there's a trail, we'll find it." The next morning, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. It was my mother. She wore oversized sunglasses and an expression like she'd just walked out of a spa, not a hospital. I let the video feed record, but didn't open the door. "Tessa," she called, voice high and tight. "We're worried. You've been hard to reach." I watched her through the screen. She shifted from foot to foot, then added, "Ivy's been so overwhelmed. I don't think you realize how much pressure she's under. Everyone's asking about the wedding. The engagement announcement's going out tomorrow. Pressure. Right. Like posing in custom gowns and tasting macarons with a planner was equivalent to hemorrhaging on an operating table. I didn't reply. I didn't unlock the door. I just waited until she walked away. That afternoon, I received an email from Memorial Hospital's compliance department. Attached was a time-stamped log showing that during my surgery, a document authorizing Ivy as my proxy had been submitted from an IP address traced back to the Gala venue. My stomach turned. Not just because she did it, but because she had the presence of mind to cover herself while I was clinically dead. Another message from Margaret followed. Also, preliminary audit of your trust fund shows consistent withdrawals during your college years. Total $132,000. Most tagged as parental expenses. Want to pursue legal action? Not yet. Document everything. Mia made tea that night, while I sat on the couch trying to feel something other than fury. I remembered the nights in college I worked graveyard shifts at the bookstore while juggling pre-med. I remembered selling my car to cover tuition because Dad said money was tight. Meanwhile, they used my trust fund like a slush account to fund Ivy's internships and Mom's spa retreats, Tessa Mia said softly, handing me a mug. If it helps, this isn't normal. What they've done to you. This is abuse. Polished, polite abuse, but still abuse. I nodded slowly. The word fit too well. By the third day, I'd officially removed every member of my family from my emergency contact list. I changed my will. I revoked all prior financial permissions. Every account was now locked tighter than a submarine hatch, and still they kept calling. Ivy's new number, Dad's office line, Mom's bridge club friends. All trying to check in, but really just trying to plug the leaks in their crumbling fantasy now that their emotional janitor had finally put down the mop. I didn't answer any of them, but I did open one message, only one. From Jordan Ivy's fiancé. Subject, I think you should see this. It was a forwarded email thread. Ivy had messaged the hospital PR team the night of the gala. If there's a chance my sister doesn't make it, please don't mention it in the press release. We don't want to overshadow the award. Overshadow. The word hit like a punch to the lungs. I wrote back, "Thank you, and I'm sorry." His reply was fast. "You have nothing to be sorry for. I'm not marrying her." That night changed everything, and now I can't unsee what I saw. Later that night, I stepped out onto my tiny balcony. City lights flickered across windows. A faint breeze carried the smell of distant rain. Mia joined me, wine glass in hand. "You thinking about calling them back?" I shook my head. "No." I was just realizing that the moment I stopped breathing might have been the moment I finally started feeling alive. She raised her glass. To the next breath, I clinked mine against hers and smiled. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like someone's shadow. I felt real. 3 days after cutting financial ties, my apartment felt less like a hiding place and more like mine. The walls weren't judging me. The furniture didn't expect me to apologize, and my phone, thankfully silenced, was no longer a pipeline of guilt trips dressed as concern. I moved slower, but the ache in my stomach was nothing compared to the weight that had left my chest. Mia had turned my guest room into a temporary HQ, which really just meant she worked from my kitchen while reminding me to eat and checking every unknown number that popped up on my phone. Every morning she brewed coffee and filtered out the calls pretending to be compassion. "Your dad called again. Said it was an emergency." She'd report like a weather forecast. I'd shrug. It always is. Ivy, meanwhile, had turned desperation into an art form. Her texts evolved from pleading to passive-aggressive within days. "I know you're mad, but this wedding is a huge deal, Tessa. Vendors are threatening to pull out. The planner's threatening legal action." Not once did she ask how I was feeling. Not once did she mention the forged documents or what it meant to make legal decisions while I was unconscious. That silence spoke louder than any apology could. Margaret called me that evening with her usual brisk tone. "You might want to sit down." I was already sitting. "We've confirmed unauthorized withdrawals from your trust fund starting the year you turned 18. Majority routed to accounts tied to your parents, some labeled as education, though we both know you paid your own tuition." I swallowed. "How much?" She paused. $157,000, possibly more if we widen the scope. I exhaled slowly, the number burning itself into my brain. Not just because of what it meant financially, but because I could count the ramen dinners and unpaid internships I'd endured while they used my inheritance to prop up their lifestyle. "Should I file charges?" I asked. "Only if you're ready for war." "Not yet," I said. "But build the case." That night, my doorbell rang again. Mia glanced at the monitor and sighed. "It's your mom, wearing grief like perfume." I didn't answer. Instead, I listened as she cried through the door, her voice cracking with the exact pitch she used during charity galas to win donor sympathy. "Tessa, your father's not well. His blood pressure's been through the roof. We're losing the house. Please, just talk to us." Losing the house. The one they bought with my money. The one I wasn't even allowed to visit during Ivy's engagement party. I waited until her sobs faded down the hallway before I opened the door. Not for her, but for air. My chest needed the space. The next morning, I opened an envelope Margaret had couriered. Inside were detailed timelines, transaction logs, and one medical record. Ivy had not only forged my signature, she'd used it to waive liability for the hospital, confirming they could proceed with the gala uninterrupted, despite my condition. The legal term was reckless endangerment. The human term was cruelty wrapped in narcissism. I read it twice, then dropped it onto the floor and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't angry anymore. I was beyond that. There's a level of betrayal that empties you out so completely, you stop even wanting revenge. You just want distance. That afternoon, Mia handed me a cold soda and asked gently, "So what's the plan now?" I looked around my apartment. Clean. Quiet. Safe. I want to disappear for a bit. Clear my head. "I'll book us something tropical," she said without hesitation. "Somewhere with sun and zero Wi-Fi." I nodded, but something in me hesitated. Not because I doubted the escape, but because part of me still wanted to confront the echo of everything I used to hold together. One last time. Not for them, for closure. So I made a decision. I put on jeans and a soft sweater and went to see Jordan. We met at a corner cafe, the kind with scratchy jazz and a overpriced tea. He looked tired, but relieved to see me. "I'm sorry," he said. Before I even sat down, I should have said something sooner. I shook my head. "You said plenty. Thank you for telling me what happened that night." He leaned forward, pulling out his phone. "There's more." He tapped play on a voice memo. Ivy's voice crackled through the speaker. "If she dies, that's not on us. I mean, technically, we're covered, right? The form's signed. The award's already locked in." Jordan flinched. She was laughing when she said that. I closed my eyes, letting the recording sink in. I had no more tears, just a growing certainty that I had made the right choice by walking away. When I got home, Mia was waiting with her laptop open. "Your family's lawyer sent something weird. Looks like a motion to reclaim guardianship." I frowned. I'm 32. Apparently they're arguing that due to medical trauma and poor judgment, you're unfit to manage your estate. Are they serious? "They're desperate," she said. "But don't worry, Margaret's already filed a counter motion, and she included all the documentation of their fraud." I sat down, every muscle in my body suddenly humming with tension. They're trying to control me, even now. Because they're losing control everywhere else, she replied. The next morning, the eviction notice hit public record. Their house, my childhood home, was being foreclosed. Ivy's wedding had been officially canceled. Vendors pulling out after deposits bounced. Dad's business accounts had been frozen due to the investigation Margaret launched quietly in the background. It was all crumbling. And not because I struck back, because they built a kingdom out of my lifeblood and never bothered to reinforce the walls. Mia poured me coffee that tasted like freedom and passed over her phone. Jordan sent another update. Your sister's been shopping footage to influencers, trying to control the narrative. She's calling it a family misunderstanding. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in weeks. Let her. That's not my family anymore. So, what now? Mia asked. I picked up my laptop and typed out one final message. It was simple. To Ivy, I know what you did. This is your consequence. Do not contact me again. Then I hit block. Later that night, I curled up on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city lights blur. I wasn't sad. I wasn't bitter. I was still healing, still hurting, but no longer carrying anyone else's weight. For 78 seconds, I had died. That part of me, the dutiful daughter, the invisible sibling, the unpaid emotional caretaker, she stayed dead. The woman who came back, she was just getting started. 2 weeks after I blocked my entire family, the silence was louder than their chaos had ever been. It didn't ache the way I expected. It felt clean, like stepping out of a smoke-filled room and finally remembering how to breathe. The kind of quiet that doesn't demand an apology, the kind that feels earned. Mia and I fell into a rhythm. She worked remote from my dining table. I reorganized my life in slow, steady steps. One locked account, one revoked permission, one deleted photo at a time. We stopped referring to them as your parents or your sister. It became the Lornes. Like a distant political scandal, we occasionally monitored for updates. Their implosion wasn't just personal. Now it was paperwork subpoenas, late fees, and press inquiries. The downfall of a family that had always valued reputation over relationship. Margaret called that morning with another update. Your parents filed an emergency injunction claiming you're refusing life-saving medical decisions on your father's behalf. I blinked. He's not dying. And I'm not his proxy anymore. They forged that. I've already alerted the hospital. Sent over all the fraud evidence. They're trying to bait you into re-engagement. They know you're the only one who ever fixed their messes. Not this time, I said quietly. They created this collapse. They can sit in it. I hung up and stared at my phone. Dozens of voicemails I'd never listened to. Texts that would never be answered. They weren't trying to reconcile. They were circling the drain and looking for a lifeboat. I'd been their life raft for years. Always the one who bailed out the water while they drilled more holes. The next afternoon, Jordan texted again. Heads up, Ivy's been calling mutual friends, saying you're mentally unstable, that you faked the medical crisis for attention. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Anyone who knew me already understood that Ivy was playing her last card and bluffing hard. But the fact that she was still trying to rewrite the story, even after everything, that didn't surprise me. She was always the heroine in her own narrative, even when holding the murder weapon. I went for a walk that night. No destination, just movement. Something about putting my feet to pavement reminded me I was still here, still real, still alive. Every breath was a defiance. Every step, a quiet rebellion. When I got back, Mia was waiting with a folder. Margaret sent these. It's done. I flipped through the final documents. every financial tie severed, every shared asset dismantled, every legal loophole they might have exploited closed. I'd always wondered what closure looked like. Turns out it's a stack of notarized paperwork delivered in a plain manila envelope. I placed it in my safe alongside my birth certificate and passport, then turned to Mia. "Want to go somewhere far?" Her eyes lit up. Tropical or European, anywhere that doesn't smell like my past. We booked tickets to Thailand that night. 2 weeks. No itinerary. Just space to be. The next morning while packing, I got another message from the hospital. This one was different. A social worker reached out to say my mother had listed me as the emergency contact again. Not Ivy. Not Dad. Me. Without my consent. I called Margaret. "Already handled," she said. "They're trying to use your name as legal leverage again. I've submitted a cease and desist. Do they understand I'm not coming back? They don't believe you. They never did." On the flight to Bangkok, I finally turned off my phone for good. No more buzzing reminders of guilt. No more family group chats demanding sacrifices. Just the hum of the plane and the weight of my own freedom settling into my chest. We landed in the kind of heat that melts your bones in the best way. The resort was carved into cliffs, the ocean whispering against rocks, like it was trying to teach me something ancient. I stood on the balcony of our villa, barefoot, hair wild from travel, and let myself feel it. Peace. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cinematic. It was subtle and solid. I had never tasted anything like it. For the first few days, I barely spoke. Not because I was sad, but because I didn't need to fill the air anymore. Mia understood. She floated beside me like a satellite. We shared fruit, swam in silence, watched the sun bleed into the sea every evening, like it was rinsing the world clean. On the 6th morning, my phone temporarily powered for a local emergency. Buzzed once. A voicemail. From Jordan. "I'm sorry to bother you, but your mother sent me a message. A video. I think you should see it." Against my better judgment, I texted him back. "Send it." It came through as a download. One shaky clip. My childhood home. A foreclosure sign hammered into the lawn. Ivy screaming at someone off camera. My mother crying into her hands, her voice raw. Tessa did this to us. She destroyed her own family. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I handed the phone to Mia, who watched it once, then tossed it face down on the table. "You didn't destroy anything," she said calmly. "They handed you the matches. You just stopped putting out the fire." I looked out at the ocean. It's like they genuinely believe I'm the villain in their story. "Of course they do," she replied. "Because if they admitted the truth, they'd have to look in the mirror." That night, I wrote one final email. Not to them. To myself. I opened a blank draft and typed everything I'd wanted to hear for years. You were never wrong to set boundaries. You weren't selfish. You weren't dramatic. You were just alone. And now, finally, you're not. I hit save, not send. I didn't need validation anymore. I just needed to say it. The next morning, while sipping coffee by the water, Margaret messaged me with a single sentence. Their bankruptcy was finalized this morning. No gloating, no smiley face, just a fact. I stared at it for a while, then deleted it. I didn't need updates. Their consequences were their own now. I had new plans to make, new memories to build, new people to love, and not one of them needed a blood tie to matter. 6 days into our Thailand retreat, the silence of not being needed started to feel like music. Not the kind you hum or dance to, but the kind that lets your shoulders fall and your stomach stop bracing. For the first time since I was 12, I didn't wake up dreading the next request, the next emergency, the next burden wrapped in a polite favor. No, can you take care of this? Don't tell your father. No Ivy. No passive-aggressive texts. No pity disguised as performance. Just sunlight. Coffee with real milk. Salt air. Laughter that didn't come with strings. Mia noticed the change before I did. "You're breathing differently," she said, as we sat on the beach one afternoon. Toes in warm sand. Like you're not afraid someone's going to knock on the door. I smiled, because for the first time, they can't. She handed me her sunglasses and leaned back on her towel. So what comes next? It was the right question. Not what happened, not why did they do this, but what now? That evening, I opened my laptop and pulled up the email I'd sent myself, the one filled with the words I never got from them. I read it again slowly, then started writing something new. A project, something bigger than my pain. I'd been a storyteller in silence for years, curating their narratives, shaping their image, putting out fires they never saw. But now the story was mine. The idea came without force, fully formed. A photography exhibit, real moments, hidden moments, the quiet truth behind curated perfection. I'd call it 78 Seconds, a tribute to the time I was technically dead, a reflection of everything that happened after. Mia was immediately on board. "We could use your old family photos, juxtapose them against hospital records, receipts, legal documents." She was already pulling up gallery spaces online. "And you've got that old DSLR collecting dust." "I haven't taken a photo in years," I admitted. "Good," she said. "Means you're due." When we returned from Thailand, the city felt different. Not colder, just smaller. Like a place I'd already outgrown without realizing. The moment I stepped back into my apartment, I knew it was time to move. Too many memories hung in the air like cobwebs. Midnight sobs on the couch, ignored birthday voicemails, dinners, where I begged myself to feel something other than tired. So I found a loft near the river. High ceilings, clean light, blank walls, begging for stories. Mia helped me move. We played music while packing, not speaking much, just moving with the ease of people who understood each other's silences. On the last night in the old place, I left behind one thing, a small photo in the back of a drawer. Me and Ivy, age 7 and 9, sitting on the front steps of our childhood home. She's smiling. I'm not. That should have told me everything. Margaret called a few days after we settled into the new place. "Quick update. Their legal team is unraveling." Ivy tried to reverse the fraud charges by claiming emotional duress. It backfired. "Anything I need to do?" I asked. "No," she said. "Just enjoy the show." I wasn't watching the show anymore. I was building my own. The gallery booked us for an opening night in 6 weeks. Mia designed the layout. I wrote the captions. Every photo had context, a side-by-side of glossy family portraits and sterile hospital monitors. Ivy's award ceremony against the exact timestamp of my surgery log. Screenshots of texts, sound bites, legal filings. Not bitter, not dramatic, just the truth. The kind of truth no one could twist without cutting themselves in the process. I wasn't trying to expose them. I was freeing myself. And maybe quietly, I was also speaking to others who'd spent their lives being everything for people who gave them nothing in return. I didn't want pity. I wanted awareness, recognition, peace. 2 weeks before the gallery launch, I got an unexpected message. From Jordan. "Just saw your exhibition teaser online. I don't know how to say this, but I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry again." I typed, then deleted, then finally wrote back. "Thank you. I'm okay now. I hope you are too." His reply came instantly. Getting there. The night before the show, Mia and I walked through the gallery alone. The lights were soft. The air was still. I stood in front of the final photo, an empty hospital bed, my name still on the chart. Beneath it, the caption read, "She died." They posed. She woke up. They didn't. I stared at it for a long time, then turned to Mia. "Think anyone will come?" She smiled. "Only everyone." Opening night arrived with more press than I expected. Word had spread through old college friends, non-profit networks, even some minor influencers who loved a redemption arc. I saw faces I hadn't seen in years. Some offered quiet nods, others, tears. No one asked about the Lornes. That part of the story was already over. Ivy and Mom showed up. I knew they would. Not because they cared, but because they had to see what I'd done with their legacy. They walked the room like ghosts, avoiding eye contact, whispering behind manicured hands. But the evidence was on every wall. No need for confrontation. I'd already said everything I needed to. They left before the end. No goodbye, no scene. Just the sound of designer heels fading down marble floors. That was closure. Not a fight, not an apology, just absence. And this time, it was mine. Later that night, after the guests were gone and the lights dimmed, I stood alone in the center of the room. One of the interns snapped a photo of me without asking. I didn't mind. For once, I was in the frame. Not behind the scenes, not managing the mess. Just here. Alive. Seen. 2 days after the gallery show, I woke to sunlight and silence. The kind that doesn't rush you or demand a response. Just an invitation to live. For the first time in years, I didn't check my phone before my feet hit the floor. No panic texts. No emergencies disguised as obligations. Just the hum of the city below and the echo of my own breath. I brewed coffee slowly. No rush. No meetings. No family crises knocking on the door. Just me. Mia walked in, hair still damp from the shower, holding the paper. "You made the Sunday cover," she said, dropping it in front of me. My photo. The hospital bed. The headline read, 78 seconds. When one woman stopped dying and started living, I smiled. But it wasn't pride exactly. It was something softer, quieter, a recognition of how far I'd come without needing to prove it to anyone. The article was respectful, empathetic. It told the truth without sensationalizing it. My name was in bold, but the story belonged to everyone who'd ever been the fixer, the invisible backbone, the quiet warrior, who bled in silence. It felt right. Ivy didn't call. Mom didn't text. Dad didn't show up at my door with a trembling hand and a lie behind his teeth. Not anymore. That part of the story had closed itself. They still existed, of course. I saw glimpses, headlines about bankruptcy hearings, real estate auctions, charity board resignations. The Lornes were collapsing. Not because I destroyed them, but because they built their house on sand and expected me to be the foundation. When I walked away, it cracked. I didn't celebrate their downfall. I didn't need to. There's a difference between revenge and freedom. I chose freedom. Letting go didn't mean pretending nothing happened. It meant refusing to carry it anymore. The gallery offered me a long-term residency. 3 months full access, and a chance to curate stories from others who'd survived in silence. I said yes before they finished the sentence. I didn't want to keep reliving my pain. I wanted to help others name theirs. One woman submitted a piece called "The Apology I'll Never Get." Another titled hers, "Debt is Not Love." Each one a quiet scream, each one a mirror. Mia took a job offer nearby. We didn't talk about it much, but I knew she stayed because I was finally building something real and she wanted to be part of it. Real family does that. They don't demand they show up. Quietly. Consistently. One evening, a letter arrived. Not an email. Not a voicemail. A real letter on soft stationery, with handwriting I hadn't seen since high school. Jordan. I know I don't deserve a response, it began. But I wanted you to know I've spent every day since the gala realizing how blind I was. I'm sorry. Not just for what happened to you, but for who I let myself become while standing next to them. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. No anger, no reaction. Just a note from someone who used to know me finally seeing the truth. Months passed. The air grew cooler. Leaves began to fall like reminders that letting go is part of nature. I took long walks by the river, not to think, but to feel. To notice the way my lungs didn't tighten anymore when I saw unknown numbers. To appreciate that my reflection no longer looked tired, but grounded. I wasn't surviving. I was living. One morning I passed by a woman crying on a park bench. Young, too thin, holding a phone like it held her entire world. Her shoulders curled inward, like she was trying to disappear. I sat beside her without speaking. Just a presence. After a minute, she glanced at me. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Sorry. Family stuff. I nodded slowly. That kind of stuff doesn't go away. Just because you survive it, I said softly. But it does get quieter when you stop answering every call. Her eyes widened, then softened. I needed to hear that. I smiled and stood. We all do eventually. That night, I reopened the old email to myself. Added one line. You're allowed to be the hero of your own story. Then I closed it. I didn't need it anymore. It had done its job. The last message I ever got from Ivy came on a Tuesday at 2:03 a.m. A single sentence, I still don't understand why you hate us. I read it. I didn't answer. Because hate wasn't the opposite of love. Indifference was. And I had never felt more indifferent in my life. Their confusion wasn't mine to fix anymore. Their pain wasn't my responsibility. Their unraveling wasn't mine to mend. I spent the next week finalizing my next project. Not about my story, but others. A series of women photographed at the moment they chose themselves. Not when they got revenge. Not when they burned everything down. But the moment they stopped apologizing for wanting more. That's when real life begins. That's when healing takes root. Not loud, not cinematic, just steady. The morning of the opening, I stood in front of the first portrait, an older woman, late 60s, holding her own divorce papers like a victory flag. Her caption read, I gave him 50 years. I'm giving myself the rest. I touched the frame gently. This wasn't just art. It was truth made visible. Mia arrived late holding coffee and wearing her usual oversized scarf. You nervous? She asked. Handing me a cup. Not anymore, she grinned. You look lighter. I feel lighter, I said. Like I'm finally walking in the direction I was always meant to go. That evening, as the gallery buzzed with voices and soft music, I stood in the corner for a moment and watched it all unfold. Not as the center, not as the fixer, just as a woman who died once and didn't come back the same. And thank God for that. Story 2. Like a loaded rifle. The invoice lay in my inbox. A weekend stay at my own beach cottage costs $650. Before the truth set in, I had to read it 3 times. In reality, I was being charged rent on a property by my sister. I had bought it for around $2 million. My name is Helen, and I was duped by the worst scammer of my life 8 years ago. From my own blood and flesh, not from outsiders. It will be the house of our dreams. Brooke had murmured, her eyes glistening with that recognizable excitement that usually came before a request for cash. We were seated in our favorite cafe, the same one where 5 years prior, she had persuaded me to provide funding for the opening of her yoga studio. A location where everyone can get together, create memories, and see the children's development. I can already feel the usual pull of duty as I mix my coffee. Brooke, it's a significant investment. We'll all contribute. I can do the upkeep with Julian. Landscape maintenance will be handled by Nestor. Frankie has already begun to plan the interior design. Mom is ecstatic. She has always desired a home near the sea. Don't you know I ought to have recognized the warning signs? I should have seen that no one brought up the topic of genuine money donations. That's the problem with familial manipulation, though. Enough truth is woven throughout it to make the lies seem acceptable. I signed the documents 3 months later. It was a beautiful seaside home. Jolie Brooks' daughter instantly claimed the pool, 4 bedrooms and views of the ocean. Everyone was present to celebrate bursting champagne and planning elaborate family get-togethers. In a tearful voice, my mother, Scarlett, gave a toast thanking Helen for making it possible. The last time I felt really involved was then. The justifications began modestly. "Oh, we assumed you wouldn't want to attend Memorial Day. You're constantly preoccupied with your job." Or Jolie's pals. "Months earlier, the home was reserved for spring break. Has Brooke not informed you?" I told myself it was okay and immersed myself in my real estate business. Family members share. Family is aware. I wanted to utilize the beach home for next weekend until last week, when I finally made my mind known. It was just for 2 days that I texted Brooke. The invoice showed up 3 hours later. $600 for a room rental, $100 for cleaning. $200 is the security deposit. It buzzed on my phone. Brooke texted, "We must maintain equity. When using the residence, each person pays their portion." I retrieved my financial documents. Every property tax bill, insurance premium, and mortgage payment was paid out of my account. Last summer, the new deck Nestor shocked everyone by using my credit card to pay for a professional cleaning service. My weekly subscription fare was something Brooke insisted on. "To my empty home office," I said. The term had an ashy flavor. Once more my phone buzzed. A group chat message from this Saturday's pool party at Brook Beach House. Julie's jubilation with her swim team. Everyone is welcome. Quick fire reactions underneath it. "We're in. Frankie. I am bringing my well-known quack Nestle." The time was ideal. Julian recently acquired a new barbecue. I wasn't specifically uninvited, Mom. I wasn't. They just discovered that the simplest way to keep me out without having to play the villain was to schedule things around my important customer appointments. I started typing a reply to Brooke's invoice after opening my laptop. I ran my fingers over the keys. I swallowed my pride of being the trustworthy and responsible person for 8 years, the one you could always rely on to get it. Brooke texted again. "If you wish to utilize the residence, remember to provide the money before Friday. We're making an effort to maintain professionalism." Professional, huh? Without replying, I grabbed my phone and shut down my laptop. I should have phoned that number years ago. I started to have some concerns about the ownership arrangement Brooke had said would safeguard everyone, once my old college friend Remington rose to prominence as one of the city's leading real estate lawyers. Ram. "Hello?" When he picked up, I said, "Do you recall the predicament I found myself in at the beach house? I believe it's time for us to examine the documents I signed more closely." He answered right away. "I wanted to know when you will give me a call to discuss it." "You're being silly, Helen." My phone crackled with Brooke's voice. "Speaker. Families split expenses in this way. Each of us makes a contribution." Spreadsheets littered my kitchen counter, resembling the evidence of a murder scene. "Participate." "Brooke. I've covered everything. Everything." "That is untrue. Using the credit card I provided him for urgent repairs, Julian just purchased a new grill. I cut you off. I've got the statement here. After a brief silence, Brooks's tone changed to the sugary sweetness she used to control our mother. I guess you're just stressed out from work, sweetie. You've always had a strong passion for money. Recall what your father used to say. Don't. My voice broke. You dare not utilize Dad at this time. However, I did recall the 3 days before to his death from cancer. Dad had drew me in his hand, shaking as he held my hand. Helen, tell me you'll keep an eye out for them. Don't allow them, though. Then, without completing the statement, he had begun to cough. I had believed for years that he wished to keep them from struggling. I now questioned whether he had been warning me about anything else. Look, Brookside. We may talk about a family discount if the rental price is too high. For hundreds, perhaps, I began my accounting program. Since we purchased the house, I have covered 94% of all costs. That amounts to $1.87 million, Brooke. Where is your contribution? We take care of the planning, upkeep, and psychological strain of keeping everyone together. Helen family is something that cannot be valued. It seems like they were able to and accomplished $60 Before she could answer, I hung up and said I have to leave. Nestor recalls, my phone lit up with text messages right away. Why you must make money the center of everything. Negative vibes. Mom called Brooke in tears. How could you have so irritated her? We must discuss, Frankie girl. You're not this person. They were all blocked by me. An email from Remington pinged my machine. 20 minutes to meet. I brought coffee and discovered something fascinating in those documents from 2015. After 15 minutes, I entered Remington's office. Since college, he had not changed much. The same wire-rimmed spectacles. He had the same tendency to touch his pen when he got news. Now he was tapping. Sliding a coffee over his desk, he said, "Are you looking for the good news or the truly excellent news?" The news is excellent. He produced a heavy folder. Do you recall Brooke's insistence that the beach home be placed in an LLC for everyone's protection? I gave a nod. According to her, it would protect us all from liability concerns in the event that someone was injured on the property. Okay, Remington smiled. I just went over the operating agreement for 3 hours. Do you have a dominating interest, Helen? Complete control over interest. What Brooke said that we were all partners on an equal footing. You are the sole member with voting rights on paper. They have no ownership investment and are categorized as non-voting members. In essence, they have absolutely no legal claim to the property. He reclined. It's possible that your sister didn't read the paperwork. Or I wouldn't, she believed. I completed a cold. I felt a wave of clarity. She didn't think I would check. She assumed I would simply continue to pay indefinitely. The tapping of Remington's pen ceased. There's more. They made such improvements last summer. As the governing member, they need your written consent in order to operate legally. In English, they would have officially committed property conversion without it. REM. Helen, they took from you. I can also demonstrate it. I gazed at the documents. Resentment that has been accumulated over years solidifies into something more difficult. Colder. What choices do I have? You have the legal right to evict them, sue them for damages, or do both. You own the property. They are not entitled to it. He hesitated. They are your family, though. What are you interested in doing? A fresh message from my niece Jolie buzzed through my phone. Well done, Aunt Helen, for making Mom weep. Fortunately, your poisonous energy won't be present at this weekend's pool party. I presented the text to Remington. How quickly can you draft eviction documents? His hand was already on his laptop. Let me have 1 hour. However, Helen. Over the screen, his gaze locked with me. Are you certain you're prepared for the consequences? Dad's incomplete admonition crossed my mind. About the envoys sitting in my inbox like a declaration of war about 8 years of exclusion encased in familial duty. REM, they're not my family. Simply put, they have been robbing me for the past 8 years. I straightened my jacket and got to my feet. I also want my home returned. The seaside mansion has changed appearance. Each immaculate window and meticulously tended flower bed symbolized an additional money that they had taken from me. Across the street, I sat in my car and observed Nestor's dilapidated van parked in the driveway. As Remington went over our plan, he shuffled papers and said, "Everything is filed. However, we want written proof that they complied with a legitimate request for access. Ask to stay tonight if you can." I took out my phone and sent a message. I had practiced for 12 times. "I'm outdoors. I want to spend the weekend here. My home. It's my right." The reaction was instantaneous. The pool's splashing noises ceased. Moving behind the glass are figures. My phone exploded. "Nestor, we're having a private party, so it's unfortunate timing. Jolie, are you really following us at this very moment? Brooke, you're acting inappropriately, Helen. We'll talk about this later." I got out of my vehicle. Remington follows closely, carrying his suitcase. From the backyard came the sound of music. My backyard. We were getting close to the front entrance. I make use of my key, which they still haven't been able to take away. The backyard site was just what I had anticipated. Brooke was holding court near the new grill that I had supposedly purchased. Jolie and her friends were dispersed over the deck, and Nestor was floating on the pool lounger. What did you not grasp about the private gathering? Brooke got up. She spoke with the same tone of authority that she had been using to manipulate me for years. "It makes perfect sense," I answered. Remington. Behind me, a comforting presence. "I get it. I'm spending the weekend at my place, water trickling down the pricey deck tiles." Jolie came out of the pool. "You're so embarrassing, my God." Brooke cautioned, "Nobody wants you here, Jolie." But her faint grin gave me the impression that she was okay with her daughter's brutality. Nestor paddled to the edge of the pool. "Right now, Helen, your energy is seriously upsetting our tranquility. Perhaps you ought to locate your center and practice meditation." "My center?" They flinched at the piercing sounds of my laughter. I paid to see my family throw a party, but they didn't bother to invite me. Yet my center is right here in this house. "You're too busy all the time," Brooke yelled. Always in operation, constantly calculating money rather than creating memories. Calculating the amount of money. I took out my phone and launched the banking app. "Do you mean the $4,000 you spent on pool upkeep last month? Or the $8,000 for the new furnishings you kept me in the dark about? That was an essential cost. Or perhaps," I went on raising my voice, "the $20,000 you took out of my emergency fund for Jolie's 16th birthday, the one you said you would pay back." There was silence on the pool deck. Jolie's pals were uneasy as well. Brooke snarled, "You're creating a scene." "No," I answered softly. "I have a point." I looked at Remington. "Present them." He opened his briefcase and stepped forward. "I'm the lawyer for Mrs. Lynch. She owns the only controlling stake in this property, according to the papers I have here. She must legally approve all changes. Renovations and occupancy choices." "Nestor." The lawyer scurried from the pool. "This isn't very wise of you, Helen." "Hold on." I extended my hand. "Simply stop. The guilt trips are over. The manipulation is complete. It's all finished." I looked across at Brooke. "You wish to maintain a professional demeanor, all right? Let's act like professionals." I was given a stack of documents by Remington. I placed them on a pool chair and observed the writing becoming blurred by water stains. "What is this?" The top sheet was picked up by Brooke. Her face was going pale. Records of every dime you have stolen from me over the last 8 years, every unapproved alteration, and every illegal expense. I looked her in the eyes, along with an invoice. "You can't be serious," she muttered, "because we're all about fair shares now. You have 24 hours to remove your personal items." I turned to go, then came to a standstill. "Jolie and you're floating in a meditation pool. I also paid for that. Savor it while you can." I heard the commotion rising behind me as I walked away. Jolie's theatrical sobbing, Nestor's spiritual platitudes, and Brooke's strident complaints. However, their voices had no influence over me for the first time in years. As we arrived at the car, Remington remarked, "That went well." I turned to face the home. One final time in my place. No, it didn't. But everything went according to plan. My mother's message chimed on my phone. "Your dad would be really embarrassed." I grinned, turned off my phone, and started my car. Daddy attempted to warn me about the power of familial devotion. He would be pleased. I would at last learn how to defend myself. The motel room seemed empty and antiseptic. However, it was preferable than returning home. I launched my laptop and accessed the dashboard of the beach house's smart home, which I had paid for but had neglected to access. A glimmer of life came to the security cameras. Of course, they were still there. With her phone clamped to her ear, Brooke was pacing the living room, most likely planning his next spiritual guilt trip. Nestor was stretched out on my couch. My hardwood floors had damp tracks from Jolie and her pals, moving the celebration indoors. I turned up the music. Brooke was saying, "She's gone crazy. You don't understand, Mama. She brought a lawyer, a real lawyer indeed." A pause. Naturally. Before we signed the documents, I read them. "I'm not a moron." I grinned. I allowed them to believe that I was the foolish, unsophisticated one for 8 years, the one who was always compromising. No more. Remington texted me and my phone lighted up. "Everything has been filed. The Saturday lockdown was verified by the sheriff's office. Are you certain about this?" Via the cameras, I saw Jolie knock over a wine glass, causing crimson liquid to spill across the white carpet. No one went to tidy things up. In the days that followed, I'm positive I texted back. Using my second monitor, I kept the security feeds open while working from the hotel. When I eventually figured out the plot twist, it was like watching a reality show. They threw a larger celebration on Wednesday, seemingly in defiance of my orders. After 2 hours, Brooke's lawyer, whom she had brought in on Thursday, exited with a disappointed expression. Friday, they got to work relocating items, costly items, my belongings. I grabbed my phone. "Hi there, law enforcement. I want to report that there is theft occurring on my property." The cops showed up in 20 minutes. Through the cameras, I saw Brooke's attempts to win them over, and her expression change as they demanded ownership documentation. "We are family, though," as if it clarified everything, she continued. "They forced them to replace everything, every item of furniture and picture that has been borrowed." I kept the video. I forwarded it to Remington. That evening, I went to the controls for my smart home. Raise the temperature to 80 degrees. The Wi-Fi password has been changed. All lights should be set to slowly strobe. Enough to be a pain. Little, trivial stuff. However, it was satisfying to remind them of my existence after 8 years of being invisible. My phone rang 3 in the morning. "Nestor." "It is a haunted mansion," he mumbled, obviously intoxicated. "Negative energy permeates everything. The ghosts are upset." "No," I interrupted. "I'm upset. I'm not a spirit either. The owner is me. Leave my house." I saw them pack on Friday night, and saw Brooke tell Jolie to snap photos of each room for proof. What is the evidence? How they kept up a house that they had taken from me? 3 years ago on my 35th birthday, a recollection came to me. In an attempt to surprise them, I drove to the beach home. Everyone was there to take pictures of the family on the deck. They posed and giggled while I watched through the window in the driveway. When Brooke finally saw me, she gasped, "Oh, Helen, we weren't expecting you. You're constantly very occupied. I was never included in the pictures." A slew of texts rang on my phone. "You're making a big mistake, Brooke. The cosmos will never forget this betrayal, Nestor." "Sister, Mom, Helen, please. Let's discuss this as if we were family. I despise you, Jolie. I genuinely despise you." For the final time, I launched the smart home app. Put a single message on repeat on all of the TVs. "Tomorrow checkout is at 12 Morsche." I then typed a single answer to each of them. "Families don't take from one another." At the lockout, "See you." Tired yet at ease, I shut down my laptop and reclined in my hotel chair. The sheriff would show up tomorrow. They would finally know what it was like to be shut out tomorrow. It was the final buzzing of my phone. A message from an unidentified number. I just learned of the seaside house's fate, all set to discuss Brooke's actions from 8 years ago. I recognized the area code and froze. My old best buddy Aubrey vanished after that business transaction with Brooke went awry. I had never discovered the one secret. With my fingers hanging over the keyboard, I gazed at the message. Some realities you believe you're prepared for, until they're looking directly at you. I typed back after the lockout tomorrow. I had to evict a family first. Then, at last, I would discover the full extent of Brooke's treachery. At precisely noon, the sheriff's cruiser arrived behind my vehicle. I continued to act as though my family owned the house as I observed them through the windows of the living room. "I'm still not sure I'll follow through. Are you ready?" With the last piece of paper in hand, Remington inquired. I gave a nod, and we walked together to the front door. The locksmith followed by the sheriff, a kind-eyed woman with a no-nonsense attitude. Before we could knock, the door opened. Helen Brooke stood there, looking stunning in her luxury gown, as if she were welcoming visitors to one of her charity events. She gave a strained smile. "We can talk about this in private like family, surely." The sheriff shouted, "Mom, get out of the way!" A court order is in effect. The scene inside was just what I had anticipated. Julian was pacing beside the hearth. Nestor was sitting on the floor cross-legged, as if he were meditating. Mom sobs quietly on the sofa. Jolie was shooting everything on her phone while standing at the top of the steps. "This is happening on TikTok," she said. "Everyone will witness your monstrous nature." Surprised at how steady my voice sounded, I responded, "Go ahead. Prove to them that you were able to live in a house for 8 years without spending a single penny. That will definitely go viral." As the sheriff read the order, the locksmith began to work on the front door. I saw their expressions as reality set in. The LLC, however. Brooke stumbled. Each of us signed. Remington moved forward. "I have the documents. You actually gave up your right to vote, Mrs. Wallace. Since the beginning, your sister has been the only one in charge. This is the documentation, if you want to go over it again." A flush ran down Brooke's cheeks. I saw real dread in her eyes for the first time in my life. "This is not possible." Julian's voice trembled when he finally spoke. "We are entitled to certain rights." "No," silently I said. "Actually, you don't." Mom got to her feet, tears running down her cheeks. "Please consider the impact this will have on the family, Helen. It has been on my mind for 8 years. I haven't considered anything else." I looked over at the sheriff. They have half an hour to gather necessary personal belongings. Next week, everything else can be claimed under appropriate supervision. Nestor opened his eyes and said, "This is karma. You will be held accountable by the cosmos for this bad energy." "Karma," I chuckled. "Karma is observing all of you when you ultimately face the repercussions. as you realize that every signature document and legal detail you believed you could overlook is coming back to punish you. Karma is standing here. 15 minutes, the sheriff declared. Like frightened birds, they dispersed, snatching gadgets and pictures. Jody slammed the door behind her as she raced to her room. Like she was viewing a stranger, Brooke remained motionless and gazed at me. "The trust fund," she muttered. "What did Aubrey tell you later?" "We'll talk about that," I interrupted her. Much later. After completing the doors, the locksmith gave me new keys. No music compared to the sound of them jingling in my hand. 5 minutes. Mom grabbed my arm and tried one final time. "This is not what your father would have wanted." I took her hand away gently. "My father attempted to warn me about all of you. I simply didn't get it till now." At last they were standing on the driveway with a depressing assortment of hurriedly packed suitcases at their feet. While the locksmith changed the garage code, the sheriff put the last notice on the door. Brooke responded, "This isn't over," but her voice was weak. "Isn't it?" "It really is," I said. Nestor was in his van, and they departed one by one. Joelle in their SUV with Julian. Mom in her car. Last seen standing near her vehicle was Brooke. Her cheekbones were streaked with mascara. "Where is your family?" It was her final attempt. "No," I said. "You are simply individuals who used someone who genuinely desired a family. For 8 years, she allowed herself to be robbed from." I saw them go their vehicles vanishing around the bend. With a courteous gesture, the sheriff departed. After giving me a shoulder squeeze, Remington went to his vehicle. I've been holding my breath for 8 years, and now I'm standing by myself in my driveway. It buzzed on my phone. Aubrey watched them go again. "I'm prepared to give you the truth about that trust money." I glanced at my home. Mine, really, and typed back now. "Come on over. I need to learn everything now." The truth was on the way, and I wasn't scared of it for the first time. I had everything to gain and nothing left to lose. I entered my empty house, shut the door, and listened to the lovely sound of stillness. Aubrey's appearance was identical to that of 8 years ago. She even twisted her silver rings nervously. We watched the waves crashing toward the coast from my recently recovered terrace. With a coffee mug in her hand, she continued, "I should have told you sooner. I simply couldn't handle it. Couldn't confront you. Now tell me." She produced a folder that looked as if she had carried it for years. "Do you recall that investing opportunity Brooke gave us, the one that will treble our earnings according to her?" I recalled that it was meant to be a given. 3-state chain of upscale stores. Brooke had been so passionate and compelling. "She needs starting funding," Aubrey went on. "For the first investment, you allowed her access to your trust money." I answered, "I put in my inheritance and it failed. Businesses constantly fail." Aubrey gave a sour laugh. "It didn't exist, Helen." She laid down papers on the table. No vendors, no stores, and no contracts existed. Just hollow promises and a ton of fancy papers. As I took up the papers, my hands trembled. Wire transactions and bank statements, all of which lead to accounts abroad. Everything was taken by her. Aubrey's tone faltered. "My whole inheritance. But you. The true objective was you. She didn't just steal your money." "What are you saying?" "She obtained personal loans using your trust fund as security. Enormous loans. She threatened to blame me for the scam when I caught on and challenged her. Said that she would give the impression that we had planned it jointly." Suddenly, the wind from the ocean was frigid. "What is the amount?" "Nearly all of it. The buying of the seaside cottage. It was more than just securing a place for the family to vacation. She needed to conceal the missing funds and present them as a valid investment." My coffee cup slammed against the table. She insisted on papers and an LLC structure that would allow her to control your assets without creating a paper trail. However, she made a mistake. Become careless with the legal paperwork. I got it from her. I muttered, accidentally controlling curiosity. It was the only thing that didn't work out in her plan. Aubrey grabbed my hand as she stretched across the table. I've been gathering evidence and constructing a case for 8 years. I realized it was time when I learned about the eviction. My phone shattered and buzzed. Mom is hospitalized. Panic attack brought on by stress. I hope all is well with you. I displayed the message to Aubrey. More manipulation, she said. They are only capable of that. There was another text. Frankie simply listened to everything. We must speak. I never saw any documentation, even though Brooke offered me a portion of the business. How many more, Aubrey was asked. How many individuals did she defraud? Too many. However, you were the main goal. The ideal cover for fraud is family. Who would question their own sister? I got up and moved toward the railing below. In the midday sun, the pool gleamed. I paid for the pool twice. Both once via the beach house upkeep expenses and once through my trust money. I said I want to file charges. Ahead of you already. Aubrey took out another piece of paper. A federal investigator has been collaborating with me. For months they have been constructing a case. All they needed was someone to initiate contact. The expulsion. She gave a nod. You met their needs precisely. Show that you are the owner of the property. Create unambiguous fraud documents. When you're ready, they're prepared to move. Once more my phone buzzed. The spirits informed me that you had a sinister scheme, Nestor. Sister, don't allow hatred to contaminate your spirit. It sounded more like a sob than a chuckle. His spiritual revelations were always timed perfectly. I stood at the railing with Helen Aubrey. I apologize for my disappearance. I believed that by keeping my distance, I was protecting you, collecting evidence in silence. I should have put my faith in you to tell the truth. The incorrect sister was trusted by both of us. My phone was humming with family texts inside. Actually, I had never had, attempting to shame me into keeping quiet. But quiet was no longer an option. I looked across at Aubrey. Give your investigator a call. Inform them that I'm prepared to speak. After taking out her phone, she hesitated. You are aware that this will ruin them. Not only Brooke, each and every one. Anyone who knew but said nothing. I reflected on my father's incomplete warning, my 8 years of isolation, and all the family memories I had paid for, but never experienced. They ruined themselves. They just didn't anticipate any repercussions, I replied. Aubrey was on the phone. Overlooking the water, I saw the sunset. Formal statements from federal agents and the ultimate dismantling of my family's meticulously crafted falsehoods would await us tomorrow. For the first time in 8 years, however, I felt free to breathe in my own home tonight. It was daybreak when the FBI agents came, serious faces, a dark suit, and piles of paperwork that dwarfed my own proof. My beach house was transformed into Operation Family Fraud Command Central when they set up in my living room. Not mine, but theirs. Your sister has had a busy time, spreading pictures on my coffee table. Agent Martinez spoke. The seaside home was only the beginning. Brooke was photographed attending business meetings, country club luncheons, and charity galas. Always busy, always grinning. The space, constantly discovering more victims. According to another agent, we have discovered 37 distinct cases of investment fraud. Moreover, identity theft, money laundering, and tax avoidance. Ever since they came, my phone has been buzzing non-stop. At last, I took one call. Frankie, Helen, agents from the FBI are at my door. Frankie, let them in. Tell them everything. However, Brooke promised to assist me in launching my interior design company. Did she tell you to wait and take your money? Quiet. Then a cry. How did you find out, Amma? Because she does just that. I turned to Agent Martinez and hung up. How many members of the family participated? She looked at her notes. Nestor, your brother used his meditation retreats to launder money. The recruiter was your mother, discovering rich, vulnerable widows at her church. The documentation was handled by Julian. Jolie, your niece, was also involved. She advertised phony investment possibilities on social media. My stomach rumbled, and until today, none of them had any repercussions. Families are trusted, she stated plainly. That is the reason this kind of deception is so destructive and successful. Brooke texted me and my phone buzzed. Julian is being taken into custody. Helen, please consider Jolie. She's only a kid. Millions were stolen by a youngster. Over my shoulder, Agent Martinez made a statement. We have proof that she advised other teens to put their tuition money into phony startups. I close my eyes and think about all the times Jolie insulted me, called me pitiful, and videotaped me because of her cruel remarks on social media. It's not as humorous now. The day went by like a slow-motion auto accident. Arrests, confessions, and interrogations. Under government inspection, the flawless facade of my family is collapsing. Aubrey was by my side the entire time. She serves as a constant reminder that not all betrayals are irreversible. Her label does not include all wounds. Late that afternoon, an agent said, "Your mother wants to see you because she has information to trade." In an interview room at the local FBI office, I located Mom. Her makeup was smeared with tears, and her expensive clothing was disheveled. Helen. She made a move for my hand. I carried them about in my pockets. You must comprehend. I did everything I could for the family. No, I answered softly. For Brooke, you did it. For Brooke, you always went above and above. She is unique, Mom demanded. She has a talent for deceit, connecting people and bringing things to pass. I gave a sour laugh. Is that considered theft of my trust fund bringing about change? You were left too much by your father. At last, her mask came off and she snapped. The others weren't treated fairly. By stealing, lying, and surviving, we were only redistributing goods and making them equal. Her hand smacked into the table. Helen, some of us didn't have your advantages from birth. We had to take what we needed, some of us. I got to my feet. I earned all I own. I earned everything you took. And now, you may now learn how to earn stuff as well. In a federal jail. She flinched. I am aware of additional investments, other participants. As I walked out into the corridor, I added, "Tell the agents about it." Agent Martinez and Aubrey waited. We discovered another thing, Martinez remarked quietly. The seaside home sold family treasures. Your father's watch is your grandmother's jewelry, Brooks remarked. I muttered that those were in storage. They were sold. The transactions were located. She gave me a piece of paper. On the sales, she falsified your signature. I approved the sale of my family's history as I gazed at the document with the fictitious version of my name. At last, something shattered inside of me. I cried as I said, I want to press every possible charge. Each and every one. While Agent Martinez sadly nodded, Aubrey gave me a hug. It was the final buzzing of my phone. Nestor sent a message. All sisters are forgiven by the cosmos. When are you going to? I returned the type. The federal government doesn't forgive, but the universe could. The sun was sinking on the longest day of my life outside the FBI headquarters. My relatives were detained. My heart was similar broken and more resilient than ever, while my inheritance was being tracked down. Are you prepared to return home? Aubrey inquired. Where my beach home is located. My seaside house empty. Quiet, truthful. I answered, yes, I'm ready. My phone displayed the booking request. Francesca Dixon has inquired about renting a beach property. Through the windows of the beach home, I gazed at the notification. as my coffee became cold next to my laptop. The same vista my family had relished while scheming to rob me was visible to me as the sunrise painted the ocean gold. Now the home felt different. Calm. Everything had been renovated by me, making them disappear, room by room. Fresh paint and new furnishings, fresh recollections. Aubrey had come up with the idea to list the apartment on Airbnb. "Take it back," she said. "Take it as your own." Once more, my phone buzzed. Frankie persisted. "Helen, please. After the plea agreement, I need a place to stay even though I know I don't deserve it. Only a few days." The federal lawsuit had concluded sooner than anticipated. Instead of a risk trial, Brooke accepted a 20-year sentence. Julian received 15. Both Mom and Nestle accepted $10 offers. Jolie was even subject to forced reparation payments and juvenile imprisonment. I composed a one-word response after clicking "decline" on Frankie's request. The doorbell rang. Aubrey was standing there with case files and breakfast bagels. Spreading cream cheese on a bagel, she remarked, "The forensic accountants discovered another account under your grandmother's maiden name. Victims are still being tracked down. This time, how much? 2 million, mostly from Mom's friends at church." I shook my head, remembering all the kind old ladies who believed in my mother's promises and prayers. An email from Remington was pinging my laptop. Attached are the final reparation figures. You should take a seat for this. I got the file open. My brain spun from the sheer volume of zeros. Aubrey read over my shoulder and added, "They really thought they'd never get caught." The problem with familial fraud is that everyone believes they are unique and remarkable, untouchable. I stated we weren't family. We were genetically similar markings. A fresh message from an unknown number appeared on my phone, but I could identify Jolie's writing style. In order to make amends, they are forcing me to sell all of my fancy possessions. "I've lost my whole social media business. I hope all is well with you. Everything was damaged by you." I read the text to Aubrey. She gave a snort. "Yes, everything was damaged by you. Nothing about the federal offenses." As we reviewed additional paperwork impact studies and victim accounts, the early sun illuminated the house. In black and white, the entire extent of my family's deceit was revealed. There was another booking request. Scarlett Lynch has inquired about renting a beach property. This time, my mother is going by her given name. Audacious. "Please, Helen. I'm going to be placed under home arrest. There is nowhere for me to go." Remove. Block. Take a breath. "What's humorous, do you?" "To Aubrey," I said. "All of them are still attempting to use this house. Since that's the only piece left, I'm still attempting to claim a portion of it. The rest is gone. Money scams and phony companies. This is true. I see the waves crashing against the beach as I make my way to the window. Don't you think it would feel great to get revenge?" "No." I grinned. "It feels ideal." It was the final buzzing of my phone. From Dad's old number, a message. His phone must have been on all these years because of Mom. Family is the most important thing. Remember that always. I typed back, "Mom, you're correct. Family is the most important thing." That's why I went for a different one. I opened my Airbnb settings after blocking at number 2. One house rule was added. Members of the Dixon Wallace or Lynch families are not permitted to make reservations. There are no exceptions. Are you ready? Aubrey gathered her belongings and requested. In 1 hour, the victim reparation meeting will begin. I took one final glance around my seaside cottage. My life, my home, and my rules. I actually want to make one stop first, I said. Brooke was being kept at a federal detention facility, so we headed there. I stayed outside. I sat in the parking lot, and gazed at the razor wire and tall walls. "There is nothing that you owe them." Aubrey spoke quietly. "Not even a trip." "I am aware." I got the vehicle started. All I had to do to know it was genuine was to witness it. That night, I returned to the beach home and watched the sunset from my terrace. There was silence on my phone. It was quiet in my home. Once more, my life was mine. I launched my laptop and entered a fresh description of the home for the Airbnb listing. "Welcome to Karma Beach House, where the ocean purifies everything. Every sunset signifies an end, and every daybreak ushers in fresh beginnings. Only authentic ones are welcomed by families." I then took up my wine glass, closed my laptop, and toasted the waning sun. Families are formed. Federal prosecutors are more suited to handle some cases than others. At last, I had selected mine.